Hey guys, this is John from Imagination. Happy coincidence that 2 years ago today, I posted a video on YouTube with a step-by-step how to build a light painting tool called the SpiroJib. Now what the SpiroJib is, it's a chain-driven gear system for spinning lights in a spirographic pattern. Alright, originally I built this to enter a light painting contest and kind of got caught up in the engineering of it. But over the past couple of years, I've made a few changes to the original design, some improvements, and I've talked about it to some of the folks that's asked me about it. And I told them I'd do a video to update the changes that I'd made. But I'm going to do a complete walkthrough. That way, if you've never seen the jib before and haven't had a chance to look at the earlier video, this will still tell you pretty much everything I did to build it. Now, first thing I want to talk about is the stand that I use, because that's what I get asked the most, believe it or not. And what I prefer, about 10 years ago, I ran across a couple of these lights at a yard sale. I think I give $10 for the pair, but I've looked them up online and you can still get them. About 30, they range from 35 to $50. But what I like about them is they have the real low tripod stand, so that arm has nothing to be interfered with. Alright, now that we got the stand out of the way, let's look at the jib itself. On the original design, this shaft was straight, and I found that by offsetting it, it gave me more room for this lower cassette. This top housing here is basically your hub, your spinning hub off of a bicycle. This bar here went up to your seat. The two bars here went back to the rear wheel, and then a bar came up here to the neck. All you need is the post that goes up to the stick. The rest of it you can cut off as tight as you can cut them, and you'll need the entire assembly. Okay. Now, on the 45 here is actually the top post of my light stand. I just cut a 45, cut the post off the bicycle real short, put them in and welded it together to give me this offset positioning. Alright, let me pull this one here apart. Now, assembly and disassembly on this thing is real easy. It's another reason I really like the machine and I'm willing to share it, because I do a lot of on-location work. And when you're doing on-location, unlike a studio, you can't have everything all assembled. It's too big and bulky. So I've got a headpiece, and then whatever light bar assemblies that I want to carry with me, and I have the stand, which will compact down real small, and it makes her easy to move around. Okay, so basically the two pieces fit together and inside of a satchel and go along with your pack gear. A little bit bigger than an average tripod, but not much. Alright, assembly is quick and as easy as the disassembly was. Set the legs up, extend the bottom tube, insert the head, and reattach the light bar. And she's back to operational. Okay. Now let me set this out of the way for a second, and I'll show you some of the components that, like I said, we're going to need. You need the complete hub housing off the bicycle. Now this one here I've not taken apart yet. Notice the sprocket spins. Well, we're going to fix it to the top of this hub here in a little bit, or I'm going to show you how. I've already attached mine. I'm not going to rebuild that. Alright. You'll need the rear cassette off the bicycle. There's tutorials online on how to remove them if you buy you a second-hand bicycle and want to scrap it up. The drive arm on it is nothing more than a 1/2 inch piece of square tubing. Matter of fact, let me pop this loose right quick, and I'll show you how that works. Okay, the way I built this new system, all it takes is 1 wrench. The original actually took 2 wrenches to do all the work on this, but I've kind of refined it down to where all I have to use is 1 wrench. Just like in there, pop that off. Here's our drive arm. I'll show you how to build that in a little bit. You got your chain and your head. Alright, now unlike the bicycle where the sprocket spins around as you pedal, on the SpiroJib it's a fixed gear. That's kind of a tricky part of building this, because this fixed gear has to be pretty well flush, parallel with this crank pedal. So that means you're going to have to cut the core out to where it'll fit over the hub and weld it in place. Now, in the original video, I had you take a piece of wood and mark across the splines, roughly centering the hub and working your way around the wheel to give you an alignment mark. I've actually found a much easier way of doing it. With the hub still intact, before you ever disassemble it, from the factory this is pretty well centered and straight. So what we want to do is I took a razor blade, I don't know, I guess y'all can see that. It's got a good straight edge, but that will fit inside the hub. Went down to the sprocket and marked a V. Worked my way around the hub at all the surfaces, marking a V, making sure to touch the hub every time I done it. Spin it around another smooth spot, mark a V. Another smooth spot, mark a V. Another smooth spot, mark a V. Okay? Now I've got marks all the way around this sprocket, and the points I should be able to realign with this hub and get it pretty centered. The reason it's necessary, important to have it centered is with this being a fixed gear on a drive chain with a rotating gear. If this is off-centered, as you crank around, it'll be loose on one side, tight on the other. So you want to get this as centered as you possibly can get it. And because you're going to be spinning the chain and you don't want the chain to hop off, you want this to be as parallel to this outer bar as possible. Okay? And like I said, this here is just the upper part of my light stand that I cut out on the table, made a 45, or made 2 90s to give it an offset gooseneck, and then I welded it into the hub. And you want that as straight as it can possibly be, but all the driving mechanism is in this bar with a drive arm and a sprocket. So if this is not 100% perfect, that's okay. You'd want it to, if you was going to tilt, you'd want it to tilt out a little bit because it's going to spin. If it tilts in, then you're taking a chance of your drive arm hitting your bar. Okay, so get them as straight as you can get them, as parallel as you can get them, and you'll be fine. Okay. Now, let's see. We got that welded to this. All right. The drive arm. The drive arm is just a piece of 1/2 inch square tubing. Okay. And what I did is I drilled 2 3/8 holes. All the bolts on this are 3/8. I just used it as my standard. But anyway, I drilled a 3/8 hole here at 4 inches apart. Scribed a line, used a die grinder, and I cut the slot out. And for the slot, so like I said, a 3/8 bolt can move up and down, and that gives me my adjustment for the chain tension. Okay. Now, here's one thing that I changed on it. Where the arm comes up and the bearings ride. Alright, this is where your cassette's going to be. Now, this video that I'm doing today, like I said, I'm just kind of roughing over some of the changes that I've made. If you have any questions, you can go back to the original video and watch it. It's on my same YouTube channel. And there's also a PDF attached that has step-by-step instructions how to build the original. Okay? Like I said, all I'm really showing is the modifications, and so far it's the gooseneck and how I centered the hubs, really the only differences so far. The next difference is going to be here in the bearings. In the original, I had two threaded bearings, which are kind of like this one here. Alright, and basically the inner core of the bearing was threaded and you had to adjust. You had to take two pair of pliers, or 2 wrenches, excuse me, putting on either side of the drive arm and turning it to adjust to get the sprocket to move in and out. Okay. On the new version, they're unthreaded. Okay. That way all I need is one wrench to bust it loose. I don't know if I can do this free-handed or not. With it mounted on there, I have a lot more torque. There we go. Alright. And anyway, like I said, these are smooth bearings. And I can simply align the chain, adjust, and retighten. The trick to this is, and what I was having problems with before, was my bearings binding. Well, come to find out that on a lot of these bearings, the sleeve that's in here does not go all the way through. It's flush with the base. I'll show you here in just a second. Alright, when I put on the original video, I said hold them like this, hold the bearings like this to adjust to make your tubing for the bearing carrier. Well, what happened is whenever I would tighten them down, they were binding. They wouldn't do it out here in my hand, but they'd do it on the machine. So a solution I found was to get a 3/8 sleeve that rides on this inner race on both bearings. So you can put the sleeve bearing in, put the sleeve on, and then tighten the other bearing down. Now on the new jib, neither one of these are threaded. I'm just using this as an example. But anyway, you'll have a tube in here that squeezes together. So whenever you put the assembly, alright, if I use this tube and put it on there, and I tighten this up, oh, excuse me, butterfingers. Right. When I tighten the threads up on here, without the sleeve, what happens is I tighten this to keep it locked in place. I'm actually applying pressure to the bearings themselves. Where with that sleeve in the middle, you're pressing the thread into the race to the race, and not the outer bearing, not the actual bearing itself. It makes it spin a lot smoother. All right, so I can tighten this down pretty tight, and she still spins free. And that's what that does. So you want to make this gap as wide as you want it. Alright. Put a sleeve in there so that the bearings just barely will meet the outer edge, and then tighten it down, and that'll keep you from binding the bearings on the backside. Now on this one, I just made it barely bigger than my shaft. I wish I would have made it a little bit longer on the outer side. This side here can go out as long as you want it to. But the wider this carrier is, the more stable the sprocket becomes. And like I said, we're going to throw a little weight on it, so the more stable, the better. Okay? That's it for modifications, I do believe. The gooseneck, how to realign that, and the fact that I'm using sleeves instead of threaded bearings is just about it. On the assembly, for those of you that have never watched us do this stuff from a raw, how to adjust, so we'll go ahead and do one of those. Okay, and the head down. Alright, the standard 3/8 bolt on the back side of my pedal. I welded a 3/8 nut. Alright, so that eliminated the use of one of the wrenches for that part. You want the two sprockets to line up with each other. Put it in. Run your thread down just to where it's kind of snug. Okay. Now bring your chain in. Set your chain up. And I'm going to go, let's see, I think I'm going to go with the inside sprocket and the outside sprocket down here. And that way you can see how much difference that gooseneck made from the original. Alright, loosen this up. Line this up with that outer, get this on that outer sprocket. Alright, now for the truing, just hold it up, see if you're in line. See that one bolt with this chain on it makes that nut easier to pull loose, but like I said, one wrench. I'm going to bring that in about right, let's see, about right there. I'm going to just snug this down, because I need to tighten my chain. Loosen this here, push down, tighten the chain up. Okay, sounding pretty smooth. I can tighten it up just a little bit more now that I've got this all rigged the way I want it. Now if you forget to tighten this up, it will walk as you're spinning and you'll throw a chain. I've done it several times. Excuse me. Alright, they're locked in. Could use some more, it could come in a little bit more. It's been a while since I've actually played with this. I've been on other projects lately. There we go. Tighten the chain. Yeah. And now we got a nice smooth action. There, light bar, another washer. Okay, and now we have a totally different pattern because we changed our gearing. But like I said, I'm on the inside sprocket and the outside sprocket here, and I still have plenty of room. That's, like I said, that was the first improvement that I made, was goosenecking this out. And then, like I said, the second one really is sleeving the bearings so that you don't need two wrenches. Like I said, what we was doing before with the threaded bearings, so we had to sit here like this and either take the chain off and spin the sprocket, or sit there and just move them in unison. Where now it's just loosen, spin it, push it to where it aligns, and then tightening it up. Once it's tightened, or once it's aligned, tighten the arm up. Okay. Set your light bar, and we're up to running. Okay. Alright. That's the SpiroJib version 3. And the modifications that I made, like I said, there is a PDF on the original build. It doesn't talk about the goosenecking, and I'm using threaded bearings. But other than that, the build's generally the same. So if you're not mechanically inclined, you can take the PDF over to a mechanic or a machine shop, explain to them what you want, show them the PDF and the build that I had done. Just tell them you'd like to gooseneck that off, and put sliding bearings in here instead of threaded. That's it. Hope this helps. Be good.